Hello, everybody. I would like to call this meeting to order. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we are privileged to meet on the traditional unceded Stalo territory of Palalt, Chilliwack, and Samath. When we do our land acknowledgement, we are recognizing the Stalo people's unique relationship to the land on which we do our work and committing to ongoing reconciliation. The board also acknowledges the marginalization that many members of our community have experienced, whether as a result of race, sexual orientation and gender identity, or other personal circumstances. The board is committed to providing a working and learning environment that recognizes the inherent dignity of all persons, that is inclusive of all, and that treats everyone with respect. All right, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda, please? Trustee Bondar, seconded by Trustee Reed. Anything to say on the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the agenda as circulated? That's unanimous, thank you. All right, moving on to 1.3, which is approving the minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes, please? Trustee Swanky, seconded by Trustee Bondar. Are there any errors or omissions in the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes as circulated? Thank you, that's unanimous. All right, so we are moving on to number 2.1, which is a delegation presentation on decarbonization. Do we have someone introducing this group? Or are they introducing themselves?
Madam Chairperson and Chilliwack School Board, thanks so much for having us. My name is Robin Curtis, and I am a Rotarian and chair of the Climate Change Action Group. And with me, I have Dr. Tim Cooper, who is also a Rotarian, but the brains of the operation. Yeah, he hates that. I'm the front man. So today I'm just going to talk about the Climate Change Action Group, just how it formed, some of the current data, what our children's futures look like, and some of the school board opportunities that are presented to the school board that we might be able to do. So for those of you who haven't heard about Rotary, I know a couple of you definitely have, we are a service organization in 200 countries. We have 1.4 million Rotarians worldwide, and in 2021, we added a 7th area of focus. Traditionally, we had 6, and in 2021, we were added environment, which includes climate change. And so 1.4 million of us are now trying to figure out what that looks like. So it started with 10 of us that looked around the room and we said an email that said we have to start somewhere. And it's grown to, actually those are old numbers, it's grown to 23 Rotarians and 60 members of the community. Around the table, we have a little bit of everyone. We have teachers, scientists, marketing experts, consultants, communication specialists, and technical experts. And the power of that is when we're looking at an issue, we all look at it from a different lens, which means we come up with a more powerful project. Since we've started this, we have partners that are coming out. We're working with a lot of Indigenous communities locally. We actually partnered with the school board on a project to get education kits for kindergarten to grade 5 to teach climate change at younger years, which the school board partnered with us. We're working with the city of Chilliwack, the university. We're actually even partnering with an organization called MICOD in Uganda to, that's what our recent climate fair was, to raise money for a project there. They work on democracy and human rights. And then the BC Parks Foundation has reached out to see if we can help them out as well. And I'm going to hand this over. This is where the brains, you'll see why the brains of the operation is.
Robin is correct in the sense that I do hate that, yes. So, yeah, with this, no, press. Okay, there are two main messages that we're coming here today. Is we have a fairly large number of people and a fairly widespread set of expertise. We're here to help you in any way we can. So that's one message. The other message, which is the little bit that I'm doing, is to just emphasize how late it has become. In 2018, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, that's the world's top climate scientists get together, they looked at the situation and said, if we allow the temperature to go above 1.5 degrees Celsius warmer than the pre-industrial temperatures, various feedbacks will come into play, and that will rocket the temperature way above that, and it'll be bad. Details, we'll have to wait another talk. But to avoid that, they said, we can still keep emitting a little bit of carbon dioxide, but not too much. We can emit 420 gigatons more, but then that's the limit. Now, that number doesn't mean much to you, I imagine, 420 gigatons, but when you take into account and you start adding all the different types of greenhouse gases together, approximately the human race emits 42 gigatons per year. So now you do the math. We're emitting 42 gigatons a year, and we've got 420 that we can emit. So you can see from the graph that we could happily sail along for 10 years, emitting 42 gigatons a year, and then go cold turkey, shut down oil, coal, gas. The scientists thought, well, that might be a bit rough on the people in 2028, so they suggested, Jane, please. They suggested a smoother path where we decrease our emissions uniformly, and we go from 42 gigatons in 2018, half that by about 2030, and then you can put a long tail on it out to 2050. Unfortunately, if you look at that graph, you say, well, are we actually following the line? Are we following the blue line down? No, emissions have not reduced at all. We're following the red line. And it's now 2024, there's 4 years left. So I just present that data just to say it's later than you might have thought. It's really late, okay? So next one, please. Oh, sorry.
When looking at the school board, I believe all of you are here because you care about our children's futures. And as we see, we're already seeing some of the symptoms of the climate illness that we have. We're seeing fires, that's appropriate this week, floods. There's a picture of our home a couple of years ago. We're going to see more droughts. And unfortunately, that will lead to more food shortages and increasing food prices. We will see more migrations. That is a hot topic, but it will get hotter. I won't say that. And then, of course, there will be conflict, which our kids are going to have to deal with.
So some of the things that the school board could be looking into, you already have your own experts. We know that. The engineers are usually on top of these things very well. We can help supplement a little bit. The electricity in BC is very low carbon. It comes from hydro primarily, and there's a new call that's gone out from the NDP government for 15% more electricity through wind and solar, zero carbon effectively, or very, very low. But we do have gas. We're using a lot of gas in BC. The funny thing about gas is that we think of it as better than coal, but actually in BC, the way we treat the gas, we remove it from the ground from fracked areas, some of it escapes. And natural gas can trap 120 times as much heat as carbon dioxide for the same weight. So we end up here in BC, in the short run, natural gas can be quite a bit worse than coal. And as I mentioned last time I was at the microphone, we only have a short run. So one of the things that's really a top priority for us as homeowners, but as you, as the school board too, is to see if we can get rid of gas or at least cut it down. That's a top priority. The world in general is shifting from gas to electricity. Looking at China, what they're doing is absolutely amazing. We don't have time to go into that now. But it's the sort of problem where everybody has to do their part. Everybody, including everybody in the room. So, because if we count on somebody else to do it, they'll be counting on us to do it, and nothing happens. Next, please. Okay, sorry, I was pushing it, but didn't seem to work. Yeah. Yeah, with solar panels, it's something to think about. If electricity is expensive, you can get cheaper electricity by making your own solar panels. Solar panels on a house, not necessarily cost effective, but solar panels on a bigger building, very cost effective. Okay, very cost effective. So I will hand back Mike at this time.
You don't have to do anything to the button. It's been pressed. You just stand there.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we're just holding it down. Told to press the button. Anyway, we are just here to say that we are available. There are almost 80 of us now on the team. Anything we can do to help start shifting. We feel like they're worth it for their future, but we feel like if everybody does a little bit, it can make a difference.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Trustees, are there any questions for the presenters? Sorry, can you press, you do need to press the button now.
press it
Yeah, so
again?
that someone else can talk. Trustee Bonder.
Thanks. Thank you both for bringing this to our table. I love the idea of possible grants to school boards. And if that is something we could maybe even, that sounds very enticing. Because that's not something we're applying for now. So if we can apply for it and just give it a try, there's probably not a lot of school boards doing that yet, I would imagine.
I was actually on a seminar that. Oh, sorry. Now I got it. I was actually on a seminar there were school boards sitting on the seminar. It was school boards working on this in the East. So we actually won't have to reinvent the wheel. It's being done.
Trustee Westerby?
Trustee Reed, we have to share a microphone. No worries, so I can't adjourn for the hockey game. Thank you so much for your presentation. I just wanted to let you know that when we go to our various BCSTA events and such, there have been climate action panels at most of them. I attended a couple and they did speak specifically to the nuts and bolts of the things we can do, like heat pumps, why a heat pump might not work in a northern school, why it might work down here, what the alternatives are. And I think that the information's really getting out there, and knowing that there are people locally that we can reach out to, maybe not us as policy, as governors, but like maybe the people who know. It's very, gives me a lot of hope. Thank you so much.
Oh, sorry. Trustee Swanky, can you, or Trustee Proste, just unpress for a minute?
No, I was just going to say, if there is someone that is the right person to talk to, you can point us in that direction too. We don't bang tables. We just want to work together.
Awesome, thank you. Trustee Proste, I believe.
I've been pricing out solar panels for my home just because I'm curious about the cost of it and the benefits of it. Mostly the cost, because that's probably the only benefit. But question for you was on you were mentioning, Dr. Cooper, that gas was the problem with gas that was released before it was captured. Is that like when it's captured, is it then good? Like, so when the things that we have in our homes that come from a pipe, are they safe and effective or efficient?
Okay, they're called fugitive emissions. When you go fracking for natural gas, the gas that comes out doesn't all get captured and put in the pipe coming to your home. Some of it escapes right there. Through the whole piping system coming all the way down to Chilliwack, it leaks in various different places. Tiny leaks, but they all add up. And you get a total of about 6% of the gas is lost. Now, with the 1 ton of methane capturing 120 times as much heat as 1 ton of carbon dioxide, you take the 120 and you multiply the 6% and you get about 7 times worse. And there's a factor of 2 actually helps out a bit, so it's about 3 times worse. So it is really bad in the short run, but in the long run, it's not so bad. In your home, it's already had all that leaking going on. So when you burn the gas in your home, you are not letting more escape. Tiny, tiny little cracks perhaps in your furnace, but nothing significant. Does that answer your question? Yeah, okay.
Trustee Swank.
Echoing comments of others, appreciate the presentation. The the one thing you didn't touch on was the impact on mental health, especially for children and youth in the district. It's something that is highlighted in those data sets when they come to the board. So I just wanted to kind of make that connection and bring that into this as well. The one piece, and I'm sure, Dr. Cooper, this is the last thing that you want to hear, but boards work through plans quite often, and so I did want to acknowledge that the long-range facilities plan for the district is going to be reviewed and renewed next year, and I think you've helped inform some of what I would hope to see in that plan, and I would invite yourself, your members, anyone interested to speak into that plan and try and help define what some of the priorities are for the next 5 years of the district. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. Okay, moving on to information items. We've got item 3.1, Budget Advisory Committee Report. Trustee Smith.
Thank you, Chair. The committee convened on May 9th. Those minutes are before you. This was the final meeting of the school year for the Budget Committee. I'd like to acknowledge and thank the committee members for their questions and for their input over the past year, including members in the audience tonight. I also want to make additional note of the student reps on the committee and wish them well as they take their next steps as graduates in the coming months. As members will be aware at our last meeting, policies 600 and 601 were updated. Those changes provided new direction for the committee, and that was incorporated into the process that we participated in last week. I'll speak further to the resulting recommendation once the proposed budget for next school year is presented a little later in our agenda. I thank you for my time. Any questions are welcome.
Trustees, any questions on the Budget Committee report? All right, thank you. 3.2 is Budget Advisory Committee Report Quarterly Financial Report. Is this also Trustee Specky or is this the Secretary Treasurer?
So at that same meeting that Trustee Swanky was referencing, we presented the quarterly financial statements for the, 9 months ended March 31st. The report and the summary notes are in your packet, and I guess I'd just entertain any questions that trustees have at this time.
Trustees, are there any questions about that? Trustee Swanky.
Not a comment, but I just did want to highlight the work of staff to vary the trending of the quarterly financial report and just appreciate their work in supporting the committee to monitor it over the course.
Thank you. All right. Trustee Reader, you want to ask a question? Or you just moving? Okay. Okay. So 3.3 is Trustee Written Reports. Those are in the package. 3.4 is BCSTA Report, which is Trustee Reed.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll keep it exceptionally brief. We have places to be tonight, but the BCSTA, BCSTA update, I would like to highlight that on the portal there is an AGM report. So we did attend AGM. I'd like to thank Trustee Westerby, Richelle, Bondar, and Swanky for attending with us this year. There were some very important and big things discussed. So in the report on the portal, you will see notes from all the branch meetings, including those that we don't attend, a disposition of motions, and also some standing committee reports. So that is always interesting. I do always kind of go through those. And then when I go through the BCSTA updates, there's sometimes really Sorry, I'm really excited, clearly. There's really important information that I'd like to highlight, so I just would quickly like to highlight two of them. If you look back in the emails, there is an AI education guide with a government webpage on digital literacy and AI in K-12. This isn't from BCSTA, but it is a resource that they highlighted, and I think it's something that, considering what's coming up for us, as governors and public education, it's something that I wanted to highlight. And then the Accessibility Standards Canada is having their annual public meeting on May 22nd. It is digital, but you do need to register. This year's theme is Leading Change to Make Canada Accessible, Include All People. So I did want to highlight that because that is something we are invited to attend. And the link for both of those things are in your email. That's all I wanted to share today.
Thank you so much, Trustee Reed. Okay, so we are moving on to public participation. This is comments and questions concerning the agenda. So just for anyone who hasn't been here before, when you come to the mic, you're to give your full name and tell us what agenda item you're going to be speaking to. Please don't call anyone out by name, including trustees, and be respectful. That's basically it. I think everyone knows the rules. Must be on the agenda. Thanks.
Hi, my name's Linda D'Armani, and I was going to speak on the climate change thing. Last year in New York, there were 267 fires on electric e-bikes with lithium batteries, 18 deaths, and 150 injuries. In Paris, in 2022, they pulled 149 electric buses off the road because of two fires that had started in electric buses. In Norway, ferries are banning EVs because they are highly flammable chemicals that burn hotter. Several vessels have started on fire and sunk because of electric fires, and EVs are difficult to put out. They're also heavier. Global News reported that the Australian Maritime Safety Authority states EVs can pose significant risks to ferries related to high-intensity fires, high-voltage shocks, toxic gases, gas explosions. In Toronto in 2021, e-scooters were banned since 2021. In 2023, a Toronto apartment complex has also banned electric vehicles, citing high risk of fires. CBC reported 10 fires in high-rises due to lithium battery fires. Maybe electricity isn't the solution that it's cracked up to be. Maybe this ideology is just an ideology like transgender ideology that is.
No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that, Linda. You can have a seat. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, then maybe are we going to keep our kids safe?
I let you speak a lot about electricity, but you lost your right to speak when
I'm going to speak about electricity.
You lost your right to speak when you said something transphobic. You can sit down now, Linda.
We'll try again.
My name is Darren Ollinger. Just a comment on the former speaker. I don't know if it's a fact, but what I've heard is that the operating costs of electric vehicles might be economic, but when the batteries die, it costs more to replace the batteries than it does to replace the entire car. So I was thinking deferring the procurement of electric buses, if that might be taken into consideration or factored in for the lifetime expectancy of those buses.
Thank you. Just to answer that last question, whenever there's any kind of procurement, and there's two choices, either the secretary treasurer or the facilities manager always puts those up as options and explains it to the board. So obviously we don't have a proposal for electronic buses, so we don't have that before us, but if and when that ever happens, we will have those figures.
Good evening, Deirdre O'Connor. I am an exec with the District Parent Advisory Council. I just wanted to talk about, I think it's 5.4. It's on the agenda by Trustee Swanky, and it's speaking in support of the board partner group consultation. And that is just going over it on my phone, sorry. I want to have it printed out. And basically just that I believe it's that the trustees are going to
circle back and speak with partner groups about interruptions at the meetings. I'm paraphrasing, of course, you can go through the language in detail. I would like to just highlight that it is in keeping in line with our district standards and what I hold to be the values of our district and what we've all agreed. I would at least hope that we're all agreeing to, which is our district policy 110, which is also in your agenda package tonight. I will read from it here, just saying that our district vision and motto is that we are all partners in learning, that we all have, I'm not going to butcher the Halkamalum here tonight in front of everyone and on YouTube, but that we have one heart, one mind, working together for a common purpose, which is the safety of all learners in our district. And our core values are of equity, kindness, inclusion, collaboration, and innovation. So if we could all please keep that in our hearts and in our minds when we're coming up to speak, I would appreciate it. And I'm sure that everyone, including the 15,000 children in our district and their collective parents, guardians, and caregivers would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Deirdre. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone else coming to the mic, so we are going to move on to action items. 5.1 is annual budget 2024-2025, first reading. Secretary Treasurer.
Yeah, good evening, trustees. The Assistant Secretary Treasurer, Mark Friesen, and I are going to give a very brief presentation. This comes on the heels of two other presentations. One is the public budget presentation, where we presented the budget assumptions and core changes at the last board meeting, and a budget committee meeting, as Trustee Swanky mentioned, where we went through in detail some of the slides that we'll present to you tonight. So we're going to talk very quickly over a majority of them and just dwell on a couple. So you want to advance? So the first slide is a timeline.
Next one.
There we go. So you can see we're in May. Statutorily, we have to submit to the province a budget and approved by the board budget by the 30th of June, and we have a bylaw requiring 3 readings of that. So tonight we're bringing you the first reading of that budget. As Trustee Swanky mentioned, we're doing this for the first time under the new policy 601, and well, actually it should be 600 and 601 there. And really what that does is it brings to the board's attention the way we're dealing with surplus and the percentage of funds that we're keeping in contingency. So the high-level budget summary, and this is really the big punchline for tonight, is our goals are to meet operational requirements, ensure that we align spending with the strategic plan, implement educational initiatives, which we talked about at our last board meeting. And then in terms of the underlying assumptions, we've got conservative assumptions to make sure that we have careful stewardship of funds. We assume class size and composition that's aligned with provincial law and bargaining agreements. And we are using accumulated operating surplus to balance the budget. So we are presenting a deficit budget this evening.
Okay, I'm not going to go through this in detail. This is just a reconciliation of how we got from our current amended budget to next year's budget. And the bulk of this shows the wage increases and some funding for those wage increases and inflationary increases. So we can skip to the next slide. Very quickly, this just shows a breakdown of our staffing contingency in actual numbers of bodies. So we have close to 800 teachers, and then education assistants and other support staff. So just a pictorial for you. Next slide. I just want to land here quickly. We've talked a lot in our last public budget presentation about new initiatives to align with the strat plan. And a lot of those come in the form of non-enrolling staffing. So we just wanted to give you a snapshot of a number of those positions and just to show, you know, how many bodies we have working in our system that aren't in the classroom, but definitely support the work that's going on in the classroom. So taking a snapshot, we have over 50 FTE doing this work at a cost of 6.2 million in our current year's average teacher cost of 123,000. This I just wanted to land on quickly because if you go back through the presentation in detail, you'll notice a spike in our employee benefits, and there's, you know, just average inflationary costs for CPP and EI you see there, but it's the bottom two, our extended health and dental have increased quite significantly. I mean, we're glad that we can support our employees in their wellness, but these are ever increasing costs that we aren't always funded for, so this is definitely a pressure on our budget. So I use this slide to paint the context of what Secretary Treasurer Sangster said about presenting a deficit budget. What we have presented to you is the fact that we have most of the wage increases budgeted as an expense, as a commitment that we have to pay out for next year, but we don't have all the matching revenue to go with it. So we've been given the base 2% wage increases for our unionized staff and some of our exempt positions, but the rest of the increases aren't funded at this point. So partially why we have to show a deficit budget at this time.
So just to interrupt, does that mean we think we might still get them?
Yeah, and I'll talk about that in a subsequent slide. Yeah, definitely. Sorry, not to keep you hanging. Just wanted to present the context. I'm going to skip this next two slides and go to this slide. So this is the slide that answers Trustee Richelt's question here. So the leftmost column, the as budgeted, is what we're currently doing. So you have the revenue of 189 million, but expenses at 191, and this is because we don't have all those wage increases funded at this point. But these are ministry requirements that we only report on funding announcements that have happened. So if we were stuck in this scenario, we'd be presenting a $3.3 million deficit budget at this point, and that would bring our contingency. So you drawing on our accumulated surpluses, that would bring us down to a residual balance of about 2% of our operating expenses still sitting with our accumulated surplus, which is fine according to our accumulated surplus policy, but you know, we can't sustain that. So you know, definitely not a position we want to be in. We believe what's most likely is scenario one, where we are funded for some of the wage increases, which is the cost of living adjustment, which is kind of a late announcement that the ministry gave us. So they actually have indeed promised that to us for most of our employee groups. So it's most likely that worst case scenario will be sitting at a $1.9 million deficit or use of our surplus. The better scenario would be scenario two, in which all of wage increases would be funded, which would bring our accumulated surplus residual balance to 3.1%, which is right in the middle of that 2 to 4% surplus target per policy, which so be a nice place to land. So that's where we're aiming for. We're going to skip these next two slides. Of course, we can always entertain questions if trustees have those. And, I think one more.
Yeah, and if you cast your mind back to the slide that we were just looking at, we do have a deficit for the coming year, regardless of whether we get fully funded or not. One of the comments, and I think Trustee Swanky will probably speak to it, that came up during the budget committee was that, you know, what are plans for that? That is obviously something that we couldn't sustain that level of services next year and be positive. So we would be negative again unless we adjusted our expenditures. So just an acknowledgement of that. And that's pretty well acknowledged on this slide here. So what we did was we took the same level of service and we put, you know, as though there was inflation of 2% on salaries and revenues, and you can see that our deficit would continue to grow. That's what this is. This is giving you a sense of how sustainable are our operations. Again, this is a new requirement for the province to present a multi-year financial plan, and there it is for your review. So I think that's everything we've got, and we can entertain questions and any comments that you wanted to add, Trustee Swanky.
Trustee Swanky, did you have something to say, or she was looking at you?
I think we can open up.
Okay. I guess I have a question, actually. So, obviously this isn't sustainable. It's the current way the budget is, but are we looking at, basically, we have the money now, so we're investing in some programs now, but they're not, programs for life. They're like short-term programs that we're doing, and hopefully that'll help our kids or whatever. Is that sort of what we're looking at? It's not that we are going to have to like slash our basic services to meet our needs, is it?
No, we had a really robust discussion about this at our budget committee. And, you know, the sense is if we had a balanced budget this year, we'd be sitting on a huge surplus, right? So, I think what we realized when we did our amended budget this year is we've got some needs in the system, and we need to do some work to address them, to experiment with ways that we can address them. So I think, at this point, we really are putting forward as many initiatives as we can afford, with a view to assessing them throughout the year and figuring out what's working and what's not working.
So if I was to
can see
explain
the
this to a
superintendent.
person, it's not so much that we actually have a deficit, it's that we're choosing to spend our surplus on good things. So that's not really a deficit, because we're like just taking money out of the surplus, right?
Just really quickly, this was identified in our conversations with the Board of Education too. These are priorities, along with our strategic plan, and I think this is money well invested, given the circumstances.
Trustee Swanky?
Thank you, Chair. If there'd be benefit, I can speak a little to the conversation at the table. Some of those comments all of those comments were captured and distributed to members. I would highlight the question of the structural deficit was asked. It's been highlighted why we don't want to be sitting on those unused dollars, considering the opportunity cost of not making that investment. The piece I would also highlight is that Policy 601 quite rightly acknowledges also that a budget surpluses can't be relied upon for future budgets. So that's acknowledged not just here tonight, but in board policy. If I could also just highlight some of the comments from committee members, it also did really acknowledge, I'll pick on one, which was just the catch-22. We can enjoy a sounder financial footing, but that will come at the expense of making investments that will benefit students here and now. And, kids do learn in the long term, but they also learn every day, and there's a desire to make sure that the investments happen while we have that opportunity.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I did read that when you did your report.
Thank you. My apologies. So if I can speak to a little bit of the committee process, this was new. The request of the committee was that they provide a recommendation for the allocation of that surplus. The way we approached that process was to say this is the request that's being put to the committee, to invite comments on that. There was no objection from the committee, and when I asked, is there any objection to this? If this comes forward as a consensus recommendation of the committee, there was no objection from members in that. So I would consider this to be the consensus recommendation of the budget committee to allocate that surplus. And I think the board can confidently make that decision, not just based on the expertise of staff, but with the input of those members at the table.
Any other questions, trustees? Trustee Moss?
So I know in the 3-year budget projection for substitutes, and that includes all staff, correct? That's replacing staff when they can't be in the classroom or wherever. So we're projecting 8.2, 8.3, and 8.5 million as a cost to substitutes. What was the cost in the last amended budget? I don't remember. Do you remember? No. It was around the same. Okay, I'm just remembering a couple of years ago it was 6. So I guess my question is, what do we attribute such a high number for substitutes, and are we looking at ways to do something about it?
Yeah, of course, we always want to do, I think HR has a term for like workplace, workforce management and wellness. I think the challenges we actually had a few years ago is that we had a teacher shortage and EA shortage, and so we actually couldn't fill positions, and we had a lot of scrambling and loss of service by using internal staff. So while we had a decrease in our TOC and sub costs, it was at the cost of delivering service. Now, thankfully, we're a lucky district to have been able to get a full contingent of TOCs and EAs. I think HR still struggles with hiring that, but we're definitely, have our coffers a lot more filled and we can respond to needs. We've had challenges more with post-COVID with sickness and identifying, staying home more because of symptoms and because of what health authorities tell us to do. So you see a rise there. So that sort of sums it up in a nutshell.
Trustee Prose.
I've already spoken a lot into the budget during the meeting, so I don't need to repeat that. But one of the I met a teacher this weekend who works in Kamloops, and she said they pay $10,000 a year more than they do in the Chilliwack board. Is there like, I'm just looking at this budget thinking, if that's the case, if the search for teachers are going to cost that much more, how can we possibly maintain our budget if we're fighting this? Or is it that people want to live in Chilliwack? Are we comfortable with paying a little less? Like I'm just thinking in the long term. Like,
true? I thought that salary was provincial.
Yeah,
that's what I thought.
yeah, so I don't even know where to start with the answer to this question, because it's actually it's not a sole question. So bargaining is done provincially. BCPC and PSEC determine salaries, so it's not on us to determine them. I don't know what the salaries are in every district in the province, but I believe that they're, managed by BCPC in such a way so that people aren't overtly harmed. I mean, it's hard being right near Vancouver Metro where costs are higher and potentially people there earn more, but I can't speak into another district's level of salaries. I just can't simply do that.
Trustee Swanky, are you wanting to speak as well?
I wondered if the chair would be willing to entertain the first motion as we get this rolling.
That would be great.
Perfect. Slightly out of order, but I did want to move the use of the accumulated operating surplus motion before we address the bylaw reading.
Oh, sure.
So
that would be fine with me if we do those in that order.
Perfect. So I'd like to move that the Board of Education allow the use of $3,265,077 from the accumulated operating surplus for the 2024-25 budget.
Do I have a seconder? Trustee Bond? Trustee Swanky?
Thank you, Chair. For members looking for it, it's just at the very bottom of the recommendation decision report. As referenced, this is a recommendation of the committee. For myself, this allows for that 2.2% accumulated surplus to be retained for next year. That is within policy. So it doesn't sacrifice sound financial footing as we anticipate the year ahead. Very likely, as we've heard, we'll be looking at a greater surplus, perhaps around the range of 2.9%, once we have some of those promises from government fulfilled with actual funding announcements. So, of course, we'll hope that it's higher than that, but I think it's reasonable to think that we can allocate its use today and we'll be in better footing than we anticipate today.
So does anyone else wish to speak to the motion? All right, seeing no one, all those in favor that the Board of Education allow the use of $3,265,000 and $365,077 from the accumulated operating surplus. That is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. And now we need the motion for the first reading of the budget. If someone would like to make that, sure, Trustee Swank.
Keep the ball rolling. I would move that the Board of Education approve the first reading of the annual budget of the board for the fiscal year of 2024-25 per below. Do you need it read out?
Excellent.
Trustee Westerby second. You want to speak to your motion, Trustee Swanky?
Only briefly, the proposed budget maintains current investments in district operations, including those initiated as part of the amended budget this year, and includes additional strategic investments highlighted in the April 16th budget assumptions presentation. The proposed budget was presented to the advisory committee for comment, and as I've already mentioned, the accumulated surplus discussion was a part of that. I don't really have anything further. We'll have a chance to discuss it at our next meeting for second and third reading.
Awesome. Does anyone else want to speak? I just want to very briefly say I really appreciate the work of the Budget Advisory Committee. I think it's really good that all of the partners are sort of on the same page. I think that's certainly the way my leanings are, is to spend the money, like to be obviously fiscally responsible, but to spend the money and invest in kids and not just pile up money that's not getting used on education. So I'm in favor of the budget as presented. Seeing no further comments, all those in favor of doing the first reading for the 2024-2025 budget as presented? Thank you, that's unanimous. Okay, we're moving on to 5.2, Policy 110, District Vision, Mission, and Motto Amendment.
Thank you, Chair. Really quickly, we started the journey of the policy manual analysis back in January 2020. We finished the update of the manual, and upon revision, we realized that Policy 110 needs to be updated to recognize the existing Indigenous treaty rights as affirmed in Section 35 of the Constitution Act. We also need to expand the definition of Indigenous peoples to include First Nations, rights holders, Inuit, and Métis. This change has been made in the policy for your consideration. Thank you.
Are there any questions before someone makes the motion? Trustee Moss.
Well, I have a question. What is the difference between students, parents, guardians, caregivers, staff, First Nations, Inuit, and Métis, and rights holders? What's the difference between all of those and rights holders?
Superintendent?
It is the whole notion of the recognition, as per the Constitution Act, that there are rights holders, and in our jurisdiction there are rights holders, and I think we missed that piece and not having included that in the definition when this policy was co-constructed.
I think I can provide a little bit of clarity. So First Nation is anyone who is First Nations, but rights holders are specifically the First Nations that are in our school that have LEAs with our district and stuff. So if someone's off reserve who is Cree, say, from back east, then they would be First Nations, but they wouldn't be a rights holder.
I could further clarify as well that Inuit and Métis people are not First Nations, but they are Indigenous. So then they are included as their own groups as well in that verbiage.
All right, seeing no further questions, can someone make the motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education amend Policy 110, District Vision, Mission, and Motto as presented.
Do I have a seconder? Trustee Swanky. Trustee Vondra, do you want to speak to your?
Yeah, just great to be, consistent and clear in our language as per, yes, the ministry requirements. Thank you.
Trustee Moss.
So I have one more question. So this is a ministry requirement that we state this category of persons in our language?
Superintendent?
Thank you. There's no ministry policy. If you reflect on what I just talked about, what's been embedded in the Constitution Act, it is the right thing to do as an organization. And again, going back to the definitions of, initially we had First Nations, realizing that Indigenous peoples includes First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. And so that was the recognition. It is embedded within multiple policies across the ministry. And so we want to be consistent in that. We've done some extensive consultation regarding this prior to embedding that vernacular in the policy.
Follow up? Yep.
And so legally, is this a good way of stating all of the people that we are representing in our school district? I just wonder if it's been vetted legally?
Hasn't been vetted legally, but from my conversations from multiple sources, from the ministry to multiple First Nations in our community, this is the right vernacular language to embed in our policies.
Trustee Reed.
Thank you. I would just like to speak in favor of the policy because of the amendment because this language is very consistent across different districts. I think it's also consistent with what we're kind of creating as we co-create and create. Wow, reaching for the same words here tonight. I'm so sorry. As we create new policy, this is the language that we're using, and it doesn't make sense to me if we're not using it at the start. If we're not using it, stating it in our attention. So I speak in favor.
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly, the proposed change is consistent with the distinctions-based approach. A distinctions-based approach is entrenched within the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act, which is law in the province of British Columbia. So there's no requirement to legally vet it. And in fact, this is practice in the district. It was an honest oversight. Appreciate the superintendent bringing this forward, and we can correct it and move forward with confidence.
Excellent. Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands up. So all those in favor of amending policy 110 as presented? Opposed? Oh, no, that was unanimous. Okay, thank you, trustees. Okay, we're moving on to 5.3, which is schedule of board meetings 2024-2025.
Thank you, Chair. So I've actually provided this information to the members of the Board of Education at the superintendent's debrief session, looking at the work plan for the coming school year. The only difference is that this next school year, there's going to be one additional meeting added in the month of June, if you require that meeting, given our workflow. But there'll be a public document on the website. It's called the Board Governance Documentation. It'll have all of the information, including the number of board meeting dates, as well as it'll be up on our website. It'll be all the strategic learning sessions that members of the Board of Education engage in doing their strategic work and supporting the strategic plan in the school district. Thank you.
Would anyone like to make this motion? Trustee Bonner.
I'll move that the Board of Education approve the following option for the 24-25 school year Board of Education meetings and learning sessions as presented.
Seconded by Trustee Reed. Trustee Bonner, do you want to speak to this one?
Yeah, well, it's obviously great to have clarity in our calendar, but I really love that we are having a planned schedule for our learning sessions, and we're sort of putting thought into when we're learning about certain things and how that aligns with various budget processes and stuff. So yeah, just greatly appreciate that we're doing it. It's really helpful for trustees to learn.
Trustee
Thank you, Chair. A question, if I may, and apologize, I didn't see it before now. The June 30th date, which would be if required, that's a Monday. I just wanted to make sure that was intentional.
25? It's the last day of June.
And that's okay, perfect. Thank you.
2 weeks from June 17th, it would be July.
Oh. Just to clarify for people, the 11th meeting may not actually happen. It's more to have a placeholder in the calendar so that it's there if we need it, so that people don't make plans or whatever.
So in previous years, we've had several options brought to us in regard to the board's purview to decide which options they wish to employ for their board meetings. And I note that the last couple of years, I say this every time, we're not given an option. We just have one. It's not actually an option because it's one. And so, we've had a few barn burners in board meetings with putting in long hours, and I think I would have appreciated perhaps some options where we had perhaps a couple of meetings during times that we know are going to be busy, However, that is not to be, so we have the one option, but I would just like to put that out there, so perhaps next time this schedule gets put together, that my comments could be taken into consideration.
Thank you. All right, I'm not seeing anyone else sign up, so all those in favor that the Board of Education approve the following option for the 2024-2025 school year, which would be 11 board meetings, plus 10 regular plus 1 potential, and then 12 learning sessions. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to our last action. Oh, we're doing so well, everybody. 5.4, which is board partner group consultation. Trustee Swing.
Thank you, Chair. Of the mind right now, the meetings we want to get through, we really need to make sure they align with the hockey game. Would it be beneficial to put the motion on the floor? We'll work from there.
Sure.
Okay, in that case, I would move that the Board of Education solicit input from board partner groups regarding the public participation process during the Board of Education meetings as outlined in Bylaw 5.
I have a seconder? Go, Trustee Ponder.
I'll just have that. If I may, thank you. So first I do want to acknowledge that Bylaw 5 has been reviewed and discussed at several points since adoption in February of 2022. I want to recognize that there may be fatigue from some members in having this discussion. However, it is important that we review our processes defined in bylaw to ensure that the work of the board is being done and that time and resources allocated to governance are well spent. Meetings of the board are obligated to be open to the public with the exception of those instances where the board moves in camera. The board is not obligated to allocate time and space for public participation in those meetings. However, the position of this board has been to maintain that practice with a desire to be both accessible and responsive to those interested in the work of the board and of the district. The board also has an obligation to ensure that it respects and manages the time invested in district governance and to ensure that the platform of the board meeting itself upholds the integrity of the district. This includes not just commitments under board policy, but also statutory obligations, including those under the BC Human Rights Code, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and the Workers' Compensation Act. Regrettably, public participation has been a venue where the board has been challenged in upholding these obligations. This was highlighted in our most recent public meeting on April 16th. The motion doesn't commit the board to changes, but it does acknowledge the merits of considering a change in practice and garnering input from recognized partner groups. That process would include discussions with rights holders represented through the Indigenous Education Advisory Committee, parents, guardians, caregivers represented through DPAC, district teachers represented through the CTA, district support staff represented through CUPE, and district administrators represented through the CPVPA. Input received is intended to help inform the board in considering what the next steps ought to be. It's intended to help in determining what changes, if any, best serve our community. As a final point, I do want to draw attention to the decision upheld by the Ontario Supreme Court and highlighted in the included background. In summary, we are obligated to consider the impact of any discussion in this venue and to ensure that the platform itself doesn't negatively impact the work of the district, the position of the board, and most importantly, the well-being of students, of staff, and of the parents and guardians most impacted by our work. I appreciate the consideration of the board and thank you for my time.
Thank you, Trustee Swing. Would anyone else like to speak to this? Trustee Prose.
Yeah, when I read this, I just want to try to explain myself, and so hopefully it'll come across in a good way. The board exercised its authority under Section 70 of the School Act, which says the chair or other members presiding at a meeting of the board may expel from the meeting a person other than a trustee who the presiding member or the chair considers guilty of improper conduct. That was done at the last meeting. And then I noticed that this one here, solicit input from the board partner groups, which is I think is I just don't understand why that we would want to have the partner groups, not that I'm against the partner groups regarding public participation. I'm just wondering why they were selected when Section 67 of the Act says a board must establish procedures governing the conduct of its meetings and must permit any person to inspect these procedures. I'm just wondering why there was only a select group that was chosen to discuss the public participation process. I guess it's a question. So I'm opposed to the thing as it sits right now.
Trustee Swanky, did you want to speak to why partner groups are specifically being consulted?
The board meets consistently with its partner groups, and so it's an easy avenue whereby the board can receive input from those most invested and working, most aware of the context of the district and of the board. And there's regular communication there as well. So again, it doesn't say that that is like the finite process. It just says like that's the starting point. Does the board want to have this discussion?
Trustee Reed.
I believe I was one of the trustees who raised the point that we should seek input for partner groups when we had the discussion. And I think that one of the reasons that was important to me is because in this room, we're not the only people impacted. We also have staff who are present, who, you know, the district employees, we have parents, we have students listening at home, we have students sometimes in the room. And I really wanted to hear from partner groups about how sometimes things spoken, and I'm not talking about things that are just mildly objectionable, but things that are genuinely harmful, spoken within this room are impactful, and the ways that we can balance the need to listen to feedback in public with making sure people who come in this room are safe. Partner groups specifically because there's a mechanism for each of those groups to bring somebody forward and gather that information and bring it back to those groups. I know I was a parent on DPAC and I knew they do a fantastic job, for example, because every PAC kind of elects their DPAC rep who goes to the big table and then they elect somebody that comes and, you know, so it's kind of a process by which we gather that very distinct feedback and it's thoughtful, and then we can kind of sit at that big table where we have really meaningful discussions at our partner events, and I think that that's important to me, especially when we're talking about something that impacts the community at large. So that was my rationale for asking for it, being one of the people.
Trustee Moss.
Well, I was very puzzled by this motion, because we actually don't need a motion if we want to consult with partner groups. We just consult with partner groups, and so I'm left wondering why, to what end? Is this to modify public participation? Is this to cut public participation? So these are the questions I have that are not answered in the rationale. So the rationale you gave just now is a little different than what we've got here in front of us. And the rationale sounds very much like a letter that was sent to a former trustee by the superintendent banning Dr. Ferguson from meetings.
Your point, I'm assuming, I know what you're going to say, the point of order is upheld.
What's the point of order?
Well,
I was not in camera.
Sorry,
this is not in camera information.
Sorry, it's correspondence from a district employee to a member of the public that a trustee is now sharing publicly with the public. It's totally inappropriate. And the member who has been on this board for 15 years should know that.
You're going to have to show me where what I just said.
Trustee Moss,
and so
you need to either stop talking about that piece of correspondence or you're gonna.
Question. I'm entitled to ask the question, and I'm asking for an answer. Stop cutting my microphone. This is stupid.
If I may, Chair.
Yes.
Point of order is simply to say it's not relevant to the merits of the proposed action. The motion is about a conversation with partner groups, not an individual member, and we shouldn't be naming names of members of the public in our meeting.
The rationale that you have written down is what I was commenting on that was in our package.
Oh, sorry. So the motion on the floor is whether we're going to consult with partner groups about how we can possibly change our public participation section of our board meetings, because they have become, on many occasions, quite problematic, and the last meeting was an example of that. So that's why it was included in the rationale, from my understanding. But I would just, yeah, anyways, that's all I'm going to say about that. That's what's on the floor, so that's what we should be talking about. I would just like to say I think it's a good idea. You know, at one point we had brought forward an amendment to make it so that people had to submit their questions written. And a number of the partner groups were like, we don't want to have to do that. That's, you know, not great. But we've had continuing disruptions in our meetings with people not wanting to speak to the agenda, or like last time, saying things that are really inappropriate in a meeting. And so I think that it's time to go to the partners and say, look, something needs to change, but we don't want to just impose that on you. We don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and make the public participation something that people feel like they can't come to the board and voice their concerns. So I think it's a good idea. Do it collaboratively with partner groups, try to actually make our meetings run well. And the only thing I would add is that I think students should be included. So it is students that we do all this for, and you know, if we are going to talk to partner groups, the student voice, which we already have set up, should possibly be one of the people we talk to. So let's do Westerby.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to speak in favor of this motion and thank everybody for the work that they've done in thoughtfully considering how we as a board can do our legal duty of upholding the safety of our staff and of the schools, you know, the people who come here, so the parents, the caregivers, the students, above all, as well as our legal responsibility of being transparent. We have to do both, and there cannot be compromise. So this is one of the best ways that we can do that, is to talk to people and ask, how can we do this? How can we make sure we uphold our legal responsibilities of making sure we have a safe space and are transparent? There is no compromise. So we need to make sure we do that, and I think that this is a really thorough rationale as to why and how those means are there. And I, again, applaud the forward-thinking ways of upholding our duties. Thank you.
Trustee Bondra.
Thank you. Yeah, I will also speak in favor of it. In addition to our due diligence to speak to partner groups and continuously look at how we are speaking to each other, how our communication lines are open or not. I also think that it's really important to make sure that the voices and questions of our partner groups are being heard. There is a lot of noise, and so we need to make sure we are getting the signal and not just the noise. Thanks.
Yes, I would also like to thank Trustee Swanky for bringing this to the floor to speak here, because I know that it is something that we've actually talked about at many learning sessions and working groups, which not all trustees attend. And sometimes that fatigue that we're talking about happens when, you know, we're trying to toss around ideas and we're trying to figure things out, and it's just the same ideas bouncing off of walls. And I think moving forward with it is such a good idea, making sure every trustee is present and we're having that discussion, we're moving it forward, and we have a clear path where we're getting input from outside of that same kind of chamber of speaking. So, thank you.
Trustee Moss.
Thank you. And so we also partner with our community. How are we going to include the community in this conversation? The community that goes to the polls and votes for all of us, that we are all to represent every single one of them, whether they agree with us or the other way around. So how do we include the community in this consultation?
Did Trustee Swanky or Trustee Prosser? I'm not seeing any further hands. So I think we're going to proceed to the vote. So all those in favor that the Board of Education solicit input from the board partner groups regarding public participation process during the Board of Education meetings as outlined in bylaw 5. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, meeting summaries are in the package. We're now on to public participation. Comments or questions concerning the agenda, same rules as previously.
Hello, my name is Darren Ollinger, and what I've got to bring up might be controversial from my point of view anyway, and it's regarding the amendment of Policy 110 and the criteria that are necessary for defining who might be Aboriginal. Going back to Louis Riel, we see there was a turning point in history from the indigenous people to be interlaced with white people, which creates a bloodline that is compromised. Now,
Yes, thank you.
I think we just had a conversation about we need to be mindful of what this is going to do to the public. There may be a conversation to have here. I don't think the board meeting is the venue for that.
Thank you. Your point of order is upheld. Darren,
yes. Just wanting to.
Oh, sorry. I'm concerned that the conversation is going to go off the rails a little bit. So I would suggest that if you have questions, giving you the benefit of the doubt that perhaps your comment is valid, can you please email the board?
Okay,
Email the board.
I'll get the email after. All I was wondering was though that people abuse the system for financial reasons.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tracy O'Hara. I am the QP 411 president. Just wanted to touch on a couple of things tonight. So the motion that was put forward and approved tonight to put the surplus 3.2 million into next year's budget. Yes, it was discussed at the budget committee meeting, and I just wanted to make sure that while I didn't oppose it, I certainly was not just put my hand in the air and said, yes, go ahead, do whatever you want. I'm very mindful of what goes on in this district when it comes to staffing and the creation of excluded staff positions, as well as additional teaching positions and my own members' positions. And when I have members, a good majority of them that work 5.25 hours a day as their base hours of work, I'm looking, and I think they are too, for wholesome hours. So just to roll those monies back into the operating budget and not see gains in hours of work is going to be problematic. And I think I speak for quite a few hundred of my members when I talk like that, when I speak like that. You know, and just to address Trustee Maz's question about staffing and absenteeism, and I can only speak from what I know to be true with some of my members that I speak to on a regular basis. They are burnt out. They are tired of being abused and having stretched so thin, and they're exhausted from their workloads. And it's no wonder that most people by the end of June are hanging on by a thread. So that's probably has something to do with it. So additional staffing we're always looking for. These kids, there's so many that need so much more support than what they're getting. And our EA see it, we all see it, and so I'm here to advocate tonight to make sure that the board hears that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy.
Linda Diarmoni. Actually, I noticed in your partner group stuff, you had a partner group called ICOD in partnerships in the.
Oh, that was the name of the delegation.
Okay, so what did that stand for? I was just curious.
That was the climate change.
Oh, the climate people.
It was the Rotary.
That's what-
That is their acronym.
It was,
I don't
it
know
was
what-
unusual. I saw it in the partner things and I couldn't figure out what the logo was trying to mean with the bendy people and the ICOD.
That was a Ugandan, I think a Ugandan project.
Because it's supposed to be your partner.
No, this wasn't anything to do with partner groups. This
Right
was
there.
no. This Linda.
They're a guest.
Linda, they were. It was a guest presentation from the Rotary, and that was people they've partnered with.
Has nothing to do with that.
All right. I was curious.
Name is Jim Weens, concerned citizen. I just want to address the motion put forward to possibly limit public input. Just want to caution you guys. There's a lot of really life-changing things, history-changing things that you're discussing, and society doesn't move very quickly, and some of us don't agree. And disagreement doesn't mean hate. Disagreement is disagreement. So I would appreciate it if we would just embrace the disagreement. Democracy is messy. And just because we fight or just because we raise our voices or we disagree doesn't mean we hate or that we wish you harm. We just want to have a discussion. And this is really adult stuff. This really has long-term consequences for our kids and for our society. So I would ask for respect for the people who have differing opinions that don't happen to be yours. Thank you.
All right. Not seeing anyone else up at the mic. The next Board of Education meeting will be on June 11th, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. and this meeting is adjourned.
The superintendent's
Oh, no. Never mind. Sorry. I retract. Oh. I got excited. I missed. Sorry. Ignore all that. I didn't really adjourn. I didn't hit the gavel. Sorry. Superintendent's update.
Thank you, Chair. For my update today, it's my sincere pleasure to invite back District Principal of Early Learning and Childcare, Nicole Driscoll. She's going to provide an update on early learning and childcare. I just want to provide some context here. Very briefly, before Nicole commences her presentation, I and then Dr. Savage and the whole team want to sincerely appreciate for the visioning and the hard work behind the scenes for the past many, many years. This is beyond 3 years. Nicole worked part-time diligently as a principal on this file until the ministry funded a full-time position. Implemented the vision with Nicole and the team by itself. The work has been crucial in creating affordable, board-operated, not-for-profit quality childcare on school grounds. Last Friday, I was invited. We had the superintendent's conference. There was 3 districts that was requested to make a presentation on childcare under the childcare section. Chilliwack was one of those districts, and the whole notion was around the initiative that Nicole has been driving with the team, and then she's going to provide an update today. Nicole, thanks for your passion, your diligence, your care. I've said to the team at the ministry, you need caring, passionate people that are there to drive the change, and because of your presence and the work, I mean, we've actually come afar in the school district. So, Nicole, over to you, and thank you.
Am I good now? Okay. Thank you, trustees, for allowing me to do this update today. I know that I'm between a hockey game that's happening, so I will try my best to be brief, but know that this is important work that we are very excited to share about as well. So yes, I'm here to give you an update on early learning and childcare. You might ask, what is this and where does this team belong within our school district? We were a small team of 1 in the beginning, myself, while I was a principal of schools, and our Strong Start ECEs. And from there, it has exploded in the last 2 years. So now we have a team of 4 that work out of Learning Services. Myself, Laura Callahan is our coordinator. Karen Allen assists us with our literacy and our professional development. And Amber Mothis is our Early Years Family Navigator, and that is a subcontract we hold through Chilliwack Community Services. So they provide us the funding, and we've hired that person to support support alongside in many of our drop-in programs. We have a total of approximately 45 staff members now at multiple sites. So you think about that in 2 years, it's very exciting where we've had the opportunity to come from. You might ask, what is my role? My role is District Principal of Early Learning and Childcare. It is a funded position through the Ministry of Education with the intention that I try to support early learning and childcare on school grounds and support that relationship building that we have with community partners and organizations to build and strengthen relationships between districts, school, and community. To support the integrated planning for increased access to affordable quality childcare and to increase quality childcare on school grounds. We know for parents that that is responsive to their needs. We want parents for it to be easy for families, that they can drop off kids on their way to work and they know that that's seamless in one spot for the children. So as our team expanded this year, we met in the beginning of the year for a planning meeting and had written a whole board of ideas, and we came up with our 3 main goals for this year. 1, to increase early years and childcare communication through website creation, enhanced Facebook and Instagram. Goal 2, to establish before and after school care in every elementary school by 2025. I began that strategic plan last year, and we are, as you can see, we've completed the website and the Instagram, Facebook, and we are well on our way. By September, we will be in 18 of 21 schools for before and after school care. Now, I have to say that that's a combination of nonprofit, for-profit, and school district run. We need to do this as a team. That's the only way we're going to get the amount of childcare spaces we need in our community. And our final goal is to support early years transitions with increased opportunities for high quality universal programming. And you'll see as I go through each goal, we've completed that and we're continuing to enhance that as well. So for goal number 1, quickly, yes, with the support of our tech department, we have created an early learning and childcare website. It's clearly laid out by age group for families to go and see where they can access programming and or childcare for each age level. We've enhanced our Facebook and Instagram page, and really exciting work alongside with Chilliwack Community Services and Fraser Valley Child Development we have a partner Google Calendar that shares all of the universal drop-in free programming that we provide for families with our 3 organizations. But this has been for two reasons. 1, we wanted to get it out so families could see everything that was provided. But second, we wanted to see where are gaps and where are we duplicating services, knowing that we can probably enhance the way we're providing things for families and continue to offer more. Goal 2, and this one's a big one, establish before and after school care at every elementary school by 2025. When I initially I think this was almost just a blurred out goal that I had a year and a little bit ago. It's super exciting to see that this is going to come to fruition, that we will reach this goal. And that's what's needed for families. And it's super exciting too, because we're providing more opportunities for CUPE staff to be able to work in various shifts in our before after school care as well. So just this year, we hired 23 before after school care assistants to assist in 3 of our childcare. We opened 6 between last year and this year before and after school care sites: Central, Watson, Stetos, Vetter, Robertson, and Strathcona. That was 204 childcare spaces. And again, we have a vision of this ongoing, creating a continuum of care that's inclusive, accessible, reliable, and universal for families. Again, I must stress the importance of working with partner groups. We are the 2nd fastest growing community in Canada. We cannot do this without our partner groups and our nonprofit agencies. So I co-chair the Chilliwack Child and Youth Early Years Committee and also the Chilliwack Child Care Action Plan Committee. And there we make decisions together about what we're going to do. Before we even decide to open a childcare, we bring it to that group. Is there a need there? Is there a space? Have parents reached out to child care referral agency to see if there's space there? So we work with the partner groups to ensure that we're honoring what's happening around in that community before we open. So again, just so important about working alongside there. Again, this diagram shows the impact and the expansion that's happened in just 2 years. So you can see that I know it's small, so that's why I'm just circling it a bit. You can see I'm highlighting before after school care. This is all 21 elementary schools. All the white are the areas that we don't have before after school care in 2021-22. Our childcare at that time was either YMCA, community school run, or for-profit. And now this will be as of September 2024. You can see we have only 3 white spots left. So those are 3 schools without before and after school care. The rest will all have before after school care. And again, the importance of the varied partners here. We have YMCA has been an excellent partner group to work with, not for profit. Our community schools have been fabulous, and our for-profit have been long-standing within our schools and have worked out well. This provides choice for families as well. And then the orange is our school district run. Finally, goal number 3, super excited through this before and after school care. It's also allowed us to increase the number of ECEs we have in our school district. And through that, we've created 3 early learning childcare hubs. These hubs not only have before and after school care, but they also have early learning programming. Things like just before preschool that is run by our school district ECEs, drop and play programs that are supported by our coordinator and our navigator, parent child mother goose drop-in programmings, coffee and connect. It's just a casual time for families to meet with our navigator, and they can help support them with health and development, housing, food, security, and help navigate services for families. We've been able to have wholesome staff learning sessions in Pro-D that combine not only our ECEs, but our kindergarten teachers. So we have positive partnerships happening there. And also we have 2 ministry-led sessions, strengthening early years to kindergarten and changing possibilities for early years, all trying to enhance our understanding and building our capacity to support quality transitions through to kindergarten. Our own Karen Allen set up books for babies, so we're reaching out to families right in the hospital at birth, talking about the opportunities that we have to support them. We again will continue our Ready, Set, Learn and Kinder fairs. We have our Strong Starts that are running strong here and will continue. And finally, we are super excited about partnering with Child Youth Mental Health and Chilliwack Community Services to provide parent workshop sessions out of our hubs as well. So that's been it's been a lot of great work this year. Super proud of our team, and super excited that our schools have been open and willing to have us try these different things. So thank you for your support, board. We could not have done what we did without your support. And it's notable when some other districts aren't taking these leaps yet, and we're super excited that you allowed us to do this. So again, thank you. Next Tuesday, I get to even present more to you and go into detail about all of these goals and be able to answer any further questions you may have at that time about all the minute details. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I just want to let you know that the board did meet last week with a community agency. I won't name them just because, whatever, but your name came up multiple times as just being an absolute dream to work with, and they were so, so pleased with the work you've done. So just to know, you're getting a lot of positive feedback around the community for all the work you're doing, so we really appreciate that. I had just one question about before and after school care. So obviously your goal is to get those last few schools that don't have it yet, but once we're at that point where we all have it, is there capacity space-wise or whatever within the school to increase the number of spaces at the places that already have before and after school care?
Great question. So after we've done this 3-year strategic plan of getting in all schools by 2025, we have an enhancement plan. So that means we'll go back to the schools that are full. So one example is Little Mountain. They have YMCA there. They are full to capacity. So again, it would be looking at our sites there, seeing how is there a possibility, rooms where we could expand the number of spaces. So excellent question. Yes, that's on our plan.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Nicole. That was an excellent presentation, and I just want to echo Trustee Richelt's comments as well. Having your vision and your leadership there for the early years, your collaborative approach, the way that you value everyone on your team, it is just so brilliant for our students in this district. So thank you. And I really loved, you said something, you said many things that I loved, but specifically when you mentioned you were able to make up hours for QP positions, there was some specific mention of, hours being needed. And I would imagine, does that require some overlap between, discussion in that way?
So I've been super appreciative of the relationship with HR and QP to be able to work through the process. We were able, HR and QP were able to sign a letter of understanding to ensure that people, EAs that are working our before after school care could receive up to 8 hours in their day. And so that has been that was recently signed for a second year, and which has allowed us to be able to successfully run these programs as well. We hear from EAs that they're very grateful for these positions and they do want to come back, and that's prevented them from having to have a second night job as well. We appreciate it because their work with kids is excellent. They understand that age group, they understand the kids at that school, so it is seamless.
Trustee Reed.
Hold it over here, sorry. I just wanted to say thank you so much and just relay the information that when we go about and do trustee things with other boards in British Columbia, this is kind of a shining light in the province, kind of forging a path that others aren't necessarily. And it's something that we as trustees can be proud of, but it's something that you as the people making it happen should be very proud of. And there are other districts looking to what you're doing, so thank you so much.
It does take a team, so I really have to say that it is a whole team in our district to get this there, so thank you though.
Thank you. I always have 20 questions, but I won't burden you with them tonight. We'll save them for the meeting next week, and I'm really looking forward to that. I just wanted to acknowledge, this work is really where I feel like I have to stretch my own learning because it's so new. I know it's new for you and your team. So I want to really commend you on that. You're navigating new systems and building the ship as it's flying kind of thing. Also just the successes. Yeah, there we go, the plane. Just celebrate the success and opportunities that you've been able to bring. Also just plugging early years fair tomorrow. Really looking forward to it. My kiddo will be there. We'll have a blast. But thank you for continuing that going.
Thank you. Yes, we have our district, our early years, our community early years fair, second annual tomorrow at the Fraser Valley Sardis Library from 10 to 1. So.
Okay. No, oh, that's me. Anyways, okay. This time, next Board of Education meeting is June 11th at 5:30. Meeting is adjourned.
All right. Thank you.